Most productivity advice tells you to try harder. The biological reality is that you are trying to run modern software on legacy hardware that is currently being liquidated by vigilance arousal. To understand why your baseline focus has collapsed, we must first identify the thief. I have run our internal research documents through a deep dive analysis to bridge the gap between internet trends and cognitive neuroscience. This is the data on cognitive capacity and the invisible brain drain that occurs every time your smartphone enters your visual field. Initiate briefing.
Hey, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the high price of distraction. We're going to get into the actual research that shows why your phone is draining your brain power, even when you're not using it, and then we'll lay out a science-backed plan to help you get your focus back.
You know the feeling, right? You've been glued to your desk all day. You're bouncing between emails, hopping on calls, maybe a little bit of scrolling, and when 5 o'clock hits, you are wiped out. But that one big important thing you needed to do, still sitting there. You were busy, for sure, but you didn't actually move the needle. And look, the first thing we do is blame ourselves. I'm just not disciplined enough, or I'm such a procrastinator. But what if it's not a personal failure? What if the constant pings, the notifications, even just the silent presence of our phones are fundamentally changing how our brains work? Well, the research is starting to show that's exactly what's going on.
So let's start with this wild idea called brain drain. Some incredible research shows that just having your phone nearby can hit your thinking with what's basically a 10-point IQ tax. Let's dig into the study that uncovered this crazy hidden cost.
Okay, but before we dive into the juicy details of the experiment, we need to get on the same page with one key term: cognitive capacity. The absolute best way to think about it is like the RAM in your computer. It's that limited short-term workspace your brain uses for all its heavy lifting. Thinking, problem solving, you name it. And when it gets full, everything just slows down. So the kicker is, anything that uses up even a tiny slice of that RAM, even if it's running in the background, is going to hurt your ability to do other stuff.
So to really put this to the test, a researcher named Adrian Ward and his team came up with this brilliant experiment. They wanted to see if the mere presence of a smartphone, not even using it, just having it around, could eat up some of that precious cognitive RAM.
So here's the setup. It's actually pretty simple. They brought a bunch of people into a lab and gave them some really tough cognitive tests. But they split them into 3 groups. Group 1, put your phone on the desk, face down. Group 2, keep it in your pocket or your bag. And Group 3, you gotta leave your phone in a totally different room. So, what's your guess? What do you think happened? Now remember, the key here is that nobody was actually using their phone. No notifications were going off, nobody was scrolling Instagram. Does the simple location of the phone really make a difference?
Okay, get ready for this because the results were absolutely staggering. The trend is crystal clear. The group that left their phones in another room, they performed the best, and by a lot. The group with the phone in their pocket or bag did noticeably worse, and the people who had their phones sitting right there on the desk, they performed the worst of all.
And that right there is the big takeaway. See, a part of your brain is actively, subconsciously working to not pick up your phone. It creates this low-level hum of what scientists call vigilance arousal, where your brain is just kind of waiting for a notification to pop up. And that effort, that constant act of resisting temptation, that's the invisible tax on your attention. All right, so that's the damage your phone does just by existing in the same room. But what happens when we're actually being interrupted by it? That brings us to our next section, fragmented work. Another study looked at the psychological price we pay for interruptions. People were given a task to do, but one group was constantly interrupted while the other wasn't. And the results are, well, they're pretty eye-opening. When people were interrupted, it wasn't just that they worked slower. They reported way higher levels of stress, way more frustration, and felt like the work was just a lot harder. So interruptions don't just steal your time, they totally mess with your head. Just stop and think about what's actually happening inside your head during all this. Every single time you switch from your work to a Slack message and back again, you're creating what researchers have this great term for, neural fragmentation. And get this, it's not just a momentary distraction. Some studies show it can take up to 23 minutes to get your full focus back after just one interruption.
Your attention isn't this solid block. It's being shattered into a million tiny, useless pieces.
And this isn't just a feeling, this neural fragmentation. It has real, measurable consequences for things like your memory. A huge study out of Stanford, which was published in the journal Nature, looked at the direct connection between our multitasking habits and how well our brains perform.
What they did was they compared the heavy media multitaskers, the people who are constantly juggling a dozen different information streams, with the light media multitaskers, and the difference was night and day. The heavy multitaskers were far more likely to have attention lapses, and, this is the big one, they did worst on tests of episodic memory. That's your brain's ability to recall specific events from your life.
Okay, so I know this all sounds a little doom and gloom, right? Our modern world is practically designed to destroy our focus. But here's the good news. The research doesn't just show us the problem, it points us directly to the solution. And this isn't about having more willpower, it's about having a better strategy. So, let's take all this science and boil it down into a super simple, actionable protocol. 3 steps. 1. Define your mission. Get totally, completely clear on the single most important thing you need to do. 2. Create separation from all your distractions. And 3, engage in a 90-minute sprint. Think of it as a modern take on monk mode, where for 90 minutes, it's just you and the work. No interruption. But I really want to double-click on step 2, create separation, because it's the real game changer here. The study we talked about earlier couldn't have been more clear. The only way to get back 100% of your cognitive capacity is to create actual physical separation. Put your phone in another room. And be ready, because your brain is going to fight you on this. It might even create what's called a dopamine mirror. That phantom buzz you feel in your pocket? That's your brain trying to trick you. Your job is to ignore it.
So where does all this leave us? What's the big picture? It means that in this day and age, focus isn't some talent you're born with. It's a skill. It's something you have to build through practice and by being incredibly deliberate about how you set up your environment.
All right, let's just do a quick lightning round of the most important things to remember from all this. First, your phone is a brain drain, even when it's just sitting there. Second, interruptions don't just waste your time, they spike your stress and shatter your attention. Third, this habit of heavy multitasking is directly linked to attention problems and even memory failure. And finally, the simplest, most powerful fix is also the easiest. Just put your phone in another room.
And that really brings us to the final and maybe the most important question of all. Our attention is literally the most valuable thing we have. So if you could get back that full, undivided cognitive horsepower that is 100% yours, what could you create? What problems could you solve? What great work could you finally get done?
The science is unambiguous. Willpower cannot overcome a fragmented environment. If your phone is in the room, a portion of your neural RAM is already gone, taxed by the subconscious effort of ignoring it. To reclaim your 10-point IQ baseline, we move from diagnosis to execution. We are implementing the monk mode protocol, not as a habit, but as a biological shield. Your next step is to clear the vigilance arousal. Use the 12-minute NSDR 2.0 flush linked below to reset your striatal circuits and pay back your cognitive debt before your next deep work block. Subscribe to the Neural Protocol. We decode the biology of performance every Wednesday.